Good afternoon, everybody. Dave Bailey, Head of Comms at the National Enabling Programme, back in the webinars for this week. This week we're going to be looking at Sharepoint, but not really as an intranet site, but something a little bit different this time. It's about how Sharepoint underpins the collaboration and the sharing capabilities that are a key part of Microsoft 365. And most of you are already experiencing this with the Teams environment, but perhaps don't realise it. We're bringing Nick in a second from Microsoft to take us through this. We are recording the webinars as normal, and they will be posted onto the Enabling Centre for those of you that have access, and of course to the NEP website. Now, if you head over to the website after the session, not while we're on, please, you will notice we've done a little bit of a refresh of the navigation. So you will now find all the videos under the Watch tab, /watch if you want to go back there, and all our webinars are hosted on there, so you can go back and play them to your heart's content and move them forward. And also, I will remind you is that you can actually embed them on your own Force intranet sites as well using the embed code share. If you have any problems, please get in touch with the comms team at the NEP and we can help you out with that. So today we're going to be looking at Sharepoint in detail and how it underpins the Teams environment and the sharing capability. And one thing that you have to remember is that underneath every single team is a Sharepoint site that's sitting there and enabling you to hold your files and to work them through. One of the biggest opportunities of the NEP Microsoft 365 approach is to stop emailing each other with documents and trying to work out which document is the most recent one. What we do within our team alone is very rarely send an actual document by email or Teams. We send a link, a share link, so we can all collaborate on it at the same time or control who does collaborate on it. And that's what we're going to go through today. But there is opportunities beyond that of making those documents more and more visible to other people to use. I think, there's a huge opportunity to work differently with the 365. It does take a challenge, and it takes leadership to say, why are you sending me a document when you could send me the link to it and I could access it and move it forward? And the amount of time it could save. Just imagine being able to update Excel spreadsheets more than one person at the same time with the same data and have one version of the truth. So I'm going to hand over to Nick so she can take you through some of the functionality in a moment, and hopefully that'll answer things. What I will remind you of is Q&A is open. Please start putting your questions in now, and we'll start to address them as we come through the session today. Nick, over to you.
Excellent. Thank you very much, David. Okay, I'm just going to quickly share my screen. Let's bring that one back. There we go. Okay. Hopefully you should see the screen shared now. Okay, fantastic. So I'm going to talk you through quite a few bits of functionality in Sharepoint today. I'm also going to share a little bit of knowledge around Sharepoint and how I think about Sharepoint in my mind. So David mentioned there about Sharepoint. It's a repository for your files. I often think of it as a filing cabinet. That's the way that I think about it. And sometimes when I think about how I organize my filing cabinet, I use those little suspended little files that I used to use years ago when I used to sort of started my career many moons ago. So in Teams, you can get to that Sharepoint location, that filing cabinet, in just a couple of numbers of ways. And I'm just going to show you there's two ways that you can get to your files. You could, if you wanted to, use the little file icon here. I used to use this quite heavily when I used to use changing a lot of documents. And the reason why is it's a little bit of a go-to place, because here it tells me under recents all the documents that I've changed myself. Or in this case, my demo tenant, who is logged on as Megan today. It can also show me all across all of the teams that Megan is a member of. It will show her all the files here that have been amended by different people within her working groups. You can see the location here. This is a team called MPCC. There's a team here called Chief Officers Group, and you can see that these documents have been amended by people that Megan worked with. There's one there that Nesta's amended. There's quite a few here that Megan is amended as well. But it gives you a nice little consist list of documents that have been amended by your working team, relevant in the last sort of few weeks and so. The other thing that it also gives you is a quick access to your OneDrive. So think of OneDrive again as your filing cabinet. It's the same technology, it's still Sharepoint, but actually the keys, the security around that location, that filing cabinet, it means that you've got a key because it's your personal storing area. But today I'm going to show you how to use SharePoint and some of the functionality within SharePoint within that Teams icon. So if you've got a team set up here, I'm just going to give you an example here of the MPCC again, and under the strategy planning and performance channel, I do have some files that I've actually uploaded here today to go through with you. So when I think about, in my mind how this works, this is my filing cabinet, the MPCC, and this is my suspended file within that filing cabinet when we used to be in the offices with those big old-fashioned big filing cabinets. So within this suspended file, these are all the files that we collate as a working group with relates to the subject of strategy planning and performance. And there are some functionalities that you can do within Teams itself. One thing that is really cool to use is something called co-authoring. So David touched on this just now, and this is where you can open a document at the same time as somebody else within your organization. And you could, if you wanted to, make some changes on the fly together. It makes you really, it increases your performance, makes you really sort of dynamic about making changes on the fly, gets stuff done a lot quicker. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to open that about the MPCC document just to show you how co-authoring works. Let me just close that one down there. And what you can do, and on my screen over this side, I'm just going to open up, you won't be able to see this side, I'm just going to open up exactly the same document by another colleague. So while we've got Megan opening this document, we've also got the other document, the same document opened on my other screen. And if I just make a little anchor point, you can see here that Nestor's also in the document. You can see that he's anchored the word sum. You can also see up here, just at the top of your toolbar by the ribbons, you can see the other attendees of this document. They're in this document together. So what you could do is make changes on the fly. So say, for example, if that word, the word sum, if Nestor wants to make an amendment, he's made it bold, he's made it underlined. You can see the changes very dynamically, even logged on here as Megan, because it's a document that's been shared in SharePoint. The other thing you can do, which you can see here, you could, if you wanted to, have a conversation with a colleague with regards to this document. Say, for example, I wanted to talk to Nestor about this document. I could, excuse me, I could mention Nestor, think of it like a chat message. I could, if I wanted to, ask him to do something with regards to this document. So please mend something like that. And at that point, Nestor receives that chat message within the same document that he's actually working in as well. So it makes you able to sort of work together quite nicely there. Pop that one back up a second. Okay, so once we've amended that, let me just come out of this one here. There are a couple of little, not gotchas, just some information when we start talking about co-authoring. If you were in a Word document, let me just open that one again. You can change the text around somebody else. So for example, Nestor, as we know, is in the word sum. It means that Megan, who's also in this document, logged on today, she can change words around the word sum, but she wouldn't be able to change the same word here. So if I'm here, you can see I can't actually, you can see that Nestor's here. I can't actually make changes at the same time because actually he's already in this space. So within Word, you can change the text, anything around that document, but just within the same sort of around the same words, you can't change if somebody else has locked that cell in effect. If you're talking about Excel, it's the same cell. So say, for example, you had a colleague that was in A1 in Excel, you couldn't change the same cell that person is in, it locks it. So it prevents that sort of the differences not being logged correctly. If you're in PowerPoint, it's the same box. So if you create like a picture, or you've added an image, or you've added some text, they appear in boxes, don't they, in PowerPoint, and you won't be able to amend or change the same box as somebody else has anchored. So if you see somebody's name anchoring a box in PowerPoint, or the same word in Word, or maybe a cell in Excel, you won't be able to make that change to the same location. So just a couple of little gotchas that you need to be aware of there. Okay, let me just go back into Teams to see the files that we have here. So that was a very quick run through of co-authoring. There are some other functions that you have within Teams if you wanted to. As with all Office 365 and especially Teams, you've got these little 3 dots. It always means more options. But I'm actually going to just jump into SharePoint today because SharePoint itself has more options than within Teams. And the way that I can get into SharePoint, or the easiest way I can get to SharePoint, is I could, if I wanted to, click on the 3 dots and open in SharePoint, or what I could do is click on open in SharePoint here. And what that will do is open a little browser window for me. You can see another browser window has been opened. It takes me to the exact location. Remember, we talked about those suspended files within my filing cabinet. It's taken me to my exact location that I need to be in within SharePoint, which is really great. Now, there's a couple of things there's quite a lot of things you can do here, but just to show you today what things we can do. SharePoint is really great for version control. So in sort of some people in sort of the days of working, you may create, for example, this document about the MPCC, and you may decide to send it to a group of people within your organization by email. And as soon as you send it, you think, oh, I've got a typo in that, or I've missed somebody out and I need to amend it. So you amend it and then you send it out again. And you can imagine after a period of time, you've got attachments all over the place and not sort of one version of the truth. And the beauty of SharePoint is that you can share links to files. So say, for example, if I wanted to share this one, is easy for me to share. And I will go into sharing in a little bit of detail in a second. But the also nice thing about it is the version control. So say, for example, this file here, I know I've been amending this one for this demo and for other demos that I do. And the way that I can see my version control, rather than calling it, version 1, version 2, I can actually allow SharePoint to do that for me. And the way that I do that is I click on my little 3 dots and I go down to version history. And you can see here that I've got quite a few versions of this document because I've been amending it for this demo. And then, for example, Megan's been making some changes, but actually Nesta made a change previous. Maybe Megan's made a mistake and wants to go back or wants to have a look to see what this document or the changes were. What you need to do here, once you've gone into this version control, is you just click on the link to that file. Oops, or click on view. Sorry. My little mouse played up then. Where are we going? Version history. Okay. Here it is. Come on. There you go. Okay, it just pops up there, as you can see. It pops up in Word, and it's got some comments there. And then you can decide, actually, if this is the one, the document you want, you can click on Restore. And I will restore it just to show you the experience. Okay, it's because it's already open. Apologies, because I've already got it open there. Let me close that one down. Opened it before. If I click on Restore, that's because, so I've got multiple screens open today. It's because Nesta had it open on this screen here. So let's try that again. Okay, there you go. Okay, so it's easily restored back to that version that Nesta had last updated. And that's what our version control is here. You could, if you wanted to, even if you thought that was the one that you wanted, you could just click on Restore. But it's also handy just to go into that document itself and make sure that that's the document you want. So that's version control.
It's important to remember there, Nick, that obviously the new version becomes another new version as well then. So you still, if you change again, can still go back again to that original one that Nesta changed a couple of days ago.
Yeah, probably it's got Joni here because Word was logged in as Joni, so that's slightly misleading for this demonstration. But yeah, absolutely, David, you're right. It always keeps account of all those changes that you make. If there's a question that sort of may pop up of how many versions does it hold, you can hold a maximum of 500 versions, but that's very much a configuration option from your 365 administrators. That's all about sort of how much disk space that it holds, but not by default, it's a maximum of 500 versions. So that's a little bit of information for you there. The other thing you can do, which is also very cool, is called check in and check out. So if this document is really important to me and I don't really want anybody to change it, there's a couple of things I could do. I could check it out. Think of checkout like a library book. If I want this document to be my library book for this 2 weeks to read, I don't want anybody amending, then what I can do is check it out. So what I can do is click on the little 3 dots here, and I can, where's my checkout? It might be under more. There we go. Under more here, we just click on checkout. And what that is, it's actually checked that file out to Megan so that nobody else can amend it. They can read it, but they can they can't actually amend it. Now, the user experience of somebody else that wants to see this document, it might just bring this document up here a second. There it's there. I'm just going to bring up, there we go over here. So this is browser logged in here as Nesta, a colleague of Megan in this demonstration. You can see here there's a new little icon. Unfortunately, my mouse is going to mess up this little icon. You can see just above my mouse there, there's like a little circle with a little arrow in it. That indicates that this document has been checked out to somebody. I can't amend it, it's locked to somebody. And what you can do is if you hover over the document, it will actually say that it's locked out. You see there, Megan can't move my mouse unfortunately, but you'll see the MPCC. You see Megan Bone has checked this item out. So clear indication of who has that document open. Move that one over there. And then what Megan can do once she's actually made some amendments or decided that she now wants this document to be able to be viewed by other people, she can then check it back in again. So think of it like that sort of library book check in, check out. And if she wanted to, you know, she can make some a comment here to say amended. Parity. And she can check it back in again. And again, from an experience of Nesta, who had this document over open just now or viewed, you can see here that that icon is now gone with regards to the check-in, check-out. So that's another way you can sort of control your documents by checking, checking out. The other thing that we can do, say for example, this document is really important to Nesta, okay, and he wants to know when this document is being amended. What you can do is set up alerting. So I'm just going to bring Nesta back into the screen again. So I'm logged back in as Nesta here. What I can do using these little 3 dots, I can go into alert me, and then you've got some options here. Say, okay, how do I want to be alerted? Well, I'm going to just choose the defaults for this demonstration. So I'm just going to choose email alert. Anything changes in this document, and I want to be notified immediately. Okay, so I'm just going to put that in place for that document. Okay, so I'm just going to move that little window out of the way again, just so we can get back to Megan, because Megan's going to actually make an update to this document. Okay, and what Megan's going to do, she's just going to change that shouty red word back to automatic, and we're just going to take off underline. Okay, because it's 365, I'm in the browser, auto saves, which is really cool. So I'm just going to close it down. You can see it here saved. I'm just going to close it down. So that version has changed in effect. Now the experience here for Nesta, I've actually got Outlook open here. So Outlook Web Access, the web version of Outlook. I'm just going to flick away a second, just come back into the inbox, because hopefully if my demonstration has worked successfully, which it normally does, you should see, there you go. You can see that there's an alert that's been set up. I've set up an alert for this particular document. I haven't quite got my the alert come through quite yet. Let's do a bit of a refresh here. It should be immediately.
The demo gods aren't being
No, it's not. I did test this. I've tested it loads of times. I do demonstration on this quite frequently. Sometimes it doesn't take too long, to be honest with you. So I'm just going to very quickly I know I'm running out of time slightly, David. Let me just take out that a little bit more there a second. Okay, make sure it's saved.
It does work.
It does work. Going back to Nesta over here. Let's have a quick, let's see if he's got his alert in that. There you go.
There it is.
There you go. You can see it's amended. And the nice thing about here, I could amend my alerts. So that's another good question that I get. So, okay, I can set an alert up. How do I amend it? And it's easier. Just tick in here, and I can just click on the delete selected alerts, and Nesta won't have those alerts pop up anymore. And then very quickly, leading on to another really important part of SharePoint is the search button here. So search, most of the 365 search functionality is really good nowadays, and it appears at the top of your screen in 365. So in this one particularly, it's SharePoint, and in here, if I wanted to, I could maybe type in the name of a document. Maybe I knew it was something to do with a presentation in the title pops up. If I, for example, know that Megan, if I spell Megan has been, what documents has Megan been amended? I can also add people's names in there as well. And the other nice thing is if you pop into the actual SharePoint icon in the far left-hand corner, which takes you to all the SharePoint site that's Megan has access to, you could, if you wanted to here, start typing in a word. Say, for example, the presentation, and it does open the presentation. But if you click on more options, you can see here that it's very granular search engine. I can look for anything. Actually, I'm looking for a file today, but I can't remember the name of it. And it will give you all the information around the file content. Maybe it's a particular site. I haven't got one set up. Maybe it's people. Oh, actually, that's because I've got pre. Sorry. If I type in Megan, there we go. I can type in Megan, I can click on Megan's name, and it gives me information about Megan. There you go. Some documents that she's got open, and so forth. So the search engine is really powerful in SharePoint.
And you can even search for phrases in documents, can't it? If you know there's a particular phrase in the document, you don't know which documents it's in, you can search it for that way as well. It becomes really powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, I think that's it for me. David, is there anything else you want me to share?
I think if we can just pick up some of the questions, and if there's any more questions that we can come up with, and I think the first one that I'll put in frame in there. So, who has access to a document in your team by default?
Right, that's a really good question, and something I did slightly skip over today, unfortunately. So when we talk about access to your filing cabinet to SharePoint, it's whoever is a member of your team. And the way you can check that is to go into your team, the three dots, and click on Manage Team. And you can see here that this particular team, this filing cabinet, has 4 members. But if you go to SharePoint, sorry, if I just go in here, sorry, I'm all over the place. Let me go back to files and open SharePoint, just so it makes my life a lot easier. It takes me to the exact location I want to be in. You can see here the members of your SharePoint group. Now, it doesn't have to be the same as your team. Your team has access to your planner, it has access to your chats, it has everything to collaborate in that team. But SharePoint, if you wanted to, you could add more members to that particular filing cabinet. I've seen it before where you want to do some cross collaboration between 2 teams of people, but you don't need to see them in that team itself. You could, if you wanted to, add members here. You could also, which I did jump over very quickly, apologies, is to share a particular file. So if I wanted to share a particular file with maybe somebody, I can use that share function here. And I do have some options about what access they particularly have, maybe to take off allow editing. I don't want them to download, I'm going to block it, and I can apply. And then if I add Diego here as another demo tenant, I can click on send. Diego would have a link, so it's nice and easy to receive that link in email. It's one version of that truth. That link will always link back to this latest version. And another question that I'm often asked is, how do I know who's got access to a particular file? And the easiest thing to do is click on the 3 dots again and click on manage access. And it tells me here, down here, it tells me my team that have access to it. So that's my Microsoft team. But here I've got something a little bit different. This is the links that I've created when I've shared documents with people. And the way that I can find out who these were shared with is if I click on those little 3 dots again next door to the links, and I can see that I've shared this with Lynn. Lynn has edit access. And actually, if I don't want Lynn to have edit access anymore, all I do is click on that little cross button here to remove that link. So every time you share a document in SharePoint through this little icon, it creates a unique link every time. That unique link can be shared as it does through email, and that unique link gives them that certain access, whether it's edit access or block access and so forth. So let's have a look at this one to show you something different. This document here, Alan and Diego have got access, but actually it's only view. It's not edit access. And again, I can remove it if I wanted to. So manage access within the 3 dots is really handy to know to find out who's got access to your documents.
So this can be really powerful when you want to work with colleagues who are not directly part of your normal team's environment. You can work with them, but you can also limit it and change their access partway through. So a really important part. I'll get to a couple of the questions, and one of them is, can you create subfolders in there or just become a long list of documents, particularly if the version dictates archiving previous versions? And I think your version control covered that. There's only ever one link visible for the versions at the end of the day, isn't there? But in terms of the subfolders, it's just like a normal document folder, isn't it?
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, so it's always the same, and you can actually have depending on the build that you've got. I have a link on my desktop as a document folder that takes me straight into the SharePoint documents, and I don't even see that I'm in SharePoint, but I know I am to use all those functionalities. So they're really powerful. There's a question here from Laura about page refresh in co-authoring can be really a bit of a nuisance. Is there a way of it to change or increase the interval?
That's a really interesting one. Co-authoring normally works very well. When I have seen it, when it hasn't worked particularly well, sometimes it's like internal network issues. The best thing to do there is have a word with IT, and if you need Microsoft assistance around co-authoring, then just give us a shout, because I have seen it work very, very successfully, but sometimes it is network issues around the changes that dynamically being made by that user base.
I personally find it better to be in the desktop app most of the time, because you've got that little slightly more functionality, a bit more familiar than the web browser version as well. That can sometimes cut that down. Is authoring automatically applied to all documents stored in SharePoint?
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't think you can disable it either.
No.
No,
but you can reduce the access though, of course. If you've got
absolutely.
You don't want anybody to actually be editing with you, you can just make it so it's only yourself who's doing that.
Yeah.
Can documents only be checked out by the original author?
No, they can be checked out by anybody that has access to that file. So anybody in this, anybody that has access here, so you're members of your team, but you could add additional members of this SharePoint location, that filing cabinet, or you could add more people here within Teams. But yeah, anybody that has access to the file can check it in and check it out.
Okay, and I think we covered the question from Tanya, but come back if you do, if you can see the changes between versions. I think we covered that. There is a compare button as well, which is really powerful. If somebody's went on sick leave or is off on leave and left a document checked out, would it mean nobody else would be able to amend it until they're back? And what if there's an urgent amendment required?
That's a really good question. And yes, you can actually have multiple people having it checked out. So say, for example, I checked it out, I was off sick. David could have permissions to check my document back in. So you can, in a way, sort of co-author from that sort of level of security. Absolutely, yes.
Is it still a case that in SharePoint, when co-authoring check in, check out cannot work in conjunction with that? So, that's the kind of the point, isn't it? Where if you check it out, you're turning off the co-authoring.
That's correct. Yeah, by checking it out, the document is locked out. It's that library book out of that library. So it's only viewable by everybody unless it's checked back in. Like I said, it can be checked in by multiple people depending on what security you've put on it. So yeah, you only have read access. It comes up in a nice little warning message to say that you can't edit. It's only read only.
Lots of questions coming in here, so we'll try and rattle through them. Some are a bit beyond. So, are there options in SharePoint to create a database? Don't mean purely in the mean of an Excel, but I'm just conscious of Power Apps and connecting the two together. This probably sits around the lists area, doesn't it, Nick?
Yeah, absolutely. You could create a SharePoint list if you wanted to, and then you can run the Power Automate from that.
Yeah, and we're going to cover a little bit about lists in the future and how you can connect those together. But this is where there is a conversation to be had between the difference between Excel and a list, and there's some power that can be given to that. Does modern SharePoint search make having good taxonomy for keywords irrelevant now? I think, from my point of view, you need good taxonomy still and good structure to help the search work better. It doesn't get away from it, because if you're looking for one phrase and it's in hundreds of documents, you make it harder for yourself if you haven't built a good structure around it. But Nick, anything else you would add on that?
Yeah, I agree. I think you still need it, but that's just my own personal opinion. I think, that's sort of for specific and NEP led potentially.
Nice question here from Jamie. If you store a file in your private channel within a team, does this limit access to that document within that private channel?
That's a really good question, and yes, it does. So what happens when you create a private channel? For example, this one here is only actually available to a couple of people. There you go. Actually, it's only Megan that has access. Excuse me, my dog's yawning behind him. It's not too noisy. And what you'll find within SharePoint is only Megan can see the finance folder. Okay, anybody else is actually a completely hidden folder. Anybody else outside of Megan, who is the only owner of this, they won't be able to see that folder at all in SharePoint. It's completely hidden from them.
That's great. There is a question about SharePoint 2013, but that's not really within our build or gift to be talking about, so we won't be able to answer that one, unfortunately, to help you out there. Obviously, what we're talking about here is the NEP build that's standard across all forces. That's due to the blueprint. So what we're talking about is in that point of view. We can see one more question has just popped in there. So it's just the reply about taxonomy. Still need a good one, so that's nice to hear. So if there's any more questions, then anything else you'd like to cover, Nick, before we close the session?
Oh, I can't think of anything else, David, unless you want me to. Oh, I think we've ran out. I've run out of time anyway. But
we have run out of time, and there's so much to this, and we're going to leave this recording up there, and you can look at it in other ways. There is one other thing I would say is that you can make major versions as well as minor versions and make them available to a wider audience. And of course, what you could do is have documents visible to people outside your team in a folder, but they wouldn't have any edit rights by default. All those things are in the options to set it up. So I've been using SharePoint like this for some time now. It can be really powerful, particularly during the remote working. In fact, this morning my team and I have been working on about 5 documents at the same time, jumping between them, editing them and making them work through very easily. And being honest, I haven't even met one of the teams one of my members of my team face to face since all this, so it does work really well. Really important, it does also mean that if you are a member of a guest in somebody else's tenant, again, you've got this functionality as well. So it does allow that cross-force working as well as cross-team working. That's where we're going to call it a day for today. It's just gone 1 minute past 1/2, so we're keeping these to time. Next week we're doing one around forms and planner or tasks as they're beginning to blur together. We will sneak in a little sneaky Power Automate into that as well, where filling in a form can create a task in Planner, which sounds like witchcraft, but it's quite simple. And will really help to revolutionise the way we can work. So we're going to be talking about how you use the tools in the police environment, and that's really important. Forms can be a really powerful part of this work as we move forward. And then in the following weeks, we've got a few more coming up, including one around drones, which I'm sure you'll be interested in. Details of all these are in the events section of the NEP website or on the Enabling Centre, and we will be mailing them out very soon. And if you've got any feedback or things you'd like to see covered in our webinars, please reach out and get in touch with us, and we'll try and cover them as we move forward. In the meantime, there is a new newsletter. Please take a look at it and have a look and see what you can be using SharePoint and Microsoft 365 for to help your force move forward. Thanks again, Nick, for another great session, and we'll be back next week.
Thank you.